North Korea says it conducted a new underwater nuclear weapon test presided over by leader Kim Jong-un. This is the first time the regime has made public the development and testing of such a weapon. Terraform co-founder Do Kwon has been arrested in Montenegro. The entrepreneur has been on South Korean authorities' radar for allegedly defrauding investors in a multi-billion-dollar cryptocurrency scheme. And here in South Korea, the Constitutional Court partially acknowledged that there are procedural lapses in the passing of bills that reduce the prosecution's investigative powers. We begin this morning here on the Korean Peninsula. North Korea says it conducted a new underwater nuclear weapon test presided over by leader Kim Jong-un. This is the first time the regime has made public the development and testing of such a weapon. Our Kim Do-yeon has the top story.
North Korea tested a new nuclear underwater attack drone under leader Kim Jong-un's guidance this week. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency reported that the drone cruised underwater for over 59 hours before detonating in waters off its east coast at a mock target intended to simulate a South Korean U.S. military port. The exercise, it says, is to make surprise attacks in enemy waters and damage the naval capacity at major ports. The report also says that Pyongyang fired 4 cruise missiles on Wednesday to practice carrying out tactical nuclear attack missions. The missiles each carried a test warhead simulating a nuclear warhead and flew 1,500 to 1,800 kilometers. Each exploded at the intended 600 meters in the air, it says, and that the missiles proved their technology and reliability. The South Korean military has confirmed that North Korea fired 4 cruise missiles off its east coast on Wednesday, when Seoul's military observed such activities. This round of North's weapons testing comes as Seoul and Washington ramp up military drills. The two carried out combined military drills from Monday to Thursday, holding their largest field training exercises in 6 years. The drills played out live-action scenarios with the U.S. deploying its Stryker Brigade. In addition, the USS Makin Island, a highly versatile U.S. combat ship, is currently docked at South Korea's Busan port for the largest combined amphibious drill in 5 years. The Sangnyeong drill involving the U.S. Navy and South Korean Marine Corps will start next week. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in North Korea, Elizabeth Salmon, called for the presence of UN personnel in the regime to resume. Speaking to a Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency on Wednesday in Geneva, Salmon said suffering among North Koreans has been on the rise ever since the regime completely closed off its borders due to COVID-19. She also said that in order to stop ongoing nuclear threats from the regime, a negotiation strategy must be put in place that not only covers security but also economic and human rights issues. Prior to the pandemic, UN selected representatives from affiliated organizations such as the World Health Organization were sent to the north to carry out humanitarian aid projects. South Korea has dropped its WTO complaints against Japan as it also gears up to re-grant a fast-track trade status to Tokyo. The Ministry of Industry, Trade and Energy said on Thursday that it withdrew the complaint it filed against Japan back in 2019 over export curbs placed on 3 key materials for chip production. This comes after Japan lifted those restrictions following pledges made during a bilateral summit last week. The ministry has also begun procedures to revise government rules on the export and import of strategic items that would essentially return Japan to Seoul's whitelist of trusted trade partners. Apple's mobile payment system, Apple Pay, has made its debut in South Korea. Now, in a country where 2 out of 3 people use Samsung's Galaxy handsets, will the rollout of Apple Pay change the dynamics of the market? For more on the competition in the mobile payment sector, let's turn to Professor Tae Sang-mi from Ewha Women's University. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning. There are still many limitations to using Apple Pay in terms of where it can be used. For instance, Apple Pay doesn't work on public transportation. Now, why is that, Professor? And when will it be available? What needs to be done to make it more accessible?
Actually, the availability of Apple Pay on public transportation system depends on that the system, the legacy system, which means public transportation system in Korea is using legacy payment system, using that the magnetic transmission, which is enabled for reading that credit card. So that's why the Apple Pay is using the different communication method, so which need a different terminal to receive that transaction information. So until the many people wanting to use Apple Pay, which means the larger market is created by Apple Pay, that public transportation system and provider, they are waiting for the time to invest their money to change that new terminal and upgrade their software. So that's the reason why, we need to wait some time until we can use Apple Pay in public transportation system.
Right. On the first day, over 1 million people have joined to use Apple Pay, but I guess it needs more than 1 million people for now. Now, this kind of payment method comes handy for those who have a tendency to forget their wallet, but never without their phone, including myself. But let's talk about from the market perspective. Will the adoption of a simplified mobile payment be a game changer?
I think, adoption of the simplified mobile payments, such as Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, has a big potential to be a game changer in the market, of course, because the convenience and ease of use of mobile payments can provide very significant advantage for businesses and financial institutions that adopt technology, because, mobile payments can help very seamless the checkout process for the consumer and reduce transaction time, and provide a more seamless customer experience. So this is can be very particularly important in high traffic environments such as retail stores and public transportation system, where speed and convenience are very key factors, including online payments area. In addition, the mobile payments can help reduce cost for business by eliminating the need for physical payments terminal and reducing the risk of fraud and lowering the transaction fees. However, the success of mobile payments depends on the level of adoption among consumers and business. So adoption rate can be influenced by a variety of factors, including consumers' trust, ease of use, and availability of compatible devices and payments infrastructure. But regardless of all these factors, the mobile payments has a very big potential to be a significant game changer in the market, I think. Yeah.
Sure, then some are expecting the so-called catfish effect, which refers to improvements made by weaker players in the market due to stronger competition. Now, do you believe this will be the case? Can we expect more competition for Samsung Pay and Apple Pay in South Korea?
As you know, the catfish effect refers to the idea that strong competition can motivate the weaker individual companies to improve their performance and capability in order to keep up. So this concept is also relevant to the mobile payments market, I think, as the competition between Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, and other payments provider has already led to very significant innovation and improvement in the market, in the industry. As you can see, the margin provide a new, payment method using the palm vein, and in here, Korea, there are a lot of competition happen to provide a new kind of bio payments, so using the body parts like face recognition and the other, the eye scan, we can make a payments already. So as the market for mobile payments continue to grow and evolve, it is likely that we'll see additional player entering the market with a new payments method and technology, enable users to make, easy payments and, the speed payments. So, so I believe that it's gonna, motivate the other player in the market, even the new tech firms entering the market.
All right. Thank you, Professor Che, for your time this morning. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Terraform co-founder Do Kwon has been indicted in the U.S. following his arrest in Montenegro with a fake passport. Now, the entrepreneur has been on South Korean authorities' radar for allegedly defrauding investors in a multi-billion-dollar cryptocurrency scheme. Our Lee Seung-ja has more.
The whereabouts of Terraform Labs co-founder Do Kwon had been shrouded in mystery for nearly a year. That is until police in Montenegro announced on Thursday local time that the wanted CEO of the blockchain firm is in custody. Despite Kwon denying the fact that he has been on the run, he was finally arrested at an airport for having falsified documents. Do Kwon has been under investigation for the past 11 months, ever since the massive Terra Luna crash, which wiped out about $40 billion from the crypto market. He's being accused of fraud and tax evasion. It's estimated that 200,000 investors in South Korea alone were affected by the collapse of his firm's algorithmic stablecoin. While his next step is for the South Korean government to seek extradition to bring Do Kwon to South Korea, there may be some obstacles in the way. Firstly, South Korea does not have an extradition agreement with Montenegro. On top of that, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission charged Terraform Labs and Kwon with defrauding U.S. investors, so the U.S. is also likely to seek to extradite him. And while the U.S. does not have an extradition treaty with Montenegro either, the situation may well become a fight to see who can get their hands on the disgraced crypto CEO first. If South Korea is able to extradite Kwon, the prosecution will likely focus on revealing that the profit structure of Luna and Terra was fraudulent, and that it was nothing more than a Ponzi scheme. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, on the local front, the Constitutional Court of Korea partially acknowledged that there are procedural lapses in the passing of bills that reduces the prosecution's investigative powers. Our political correspondent Lee Si-hoo has more.
The Constitutional Court of Korea on Thursday ruled against part of the National Assembly's legislative process last year that reduced the prosecution's rights to investigate. 5 of the court's 9 justices ruled that the People Power Party lawmakers' voting rights were violated during the series of bills pushed mainly by the Democratic Party. The dispute was brought up against the head of the National Assembly's Legislation and Judiciary Committee and the Parliament's Speaker by the ruling People Power Party lawmakers Yoo Sang-bum and Chun Ju-hae, as well as by Justice Minister Han Dong-un and 6 other prosecutors. The court found that during the legislative process, the head of the Legislation Committee violated the majority vote rule based on the parliamentary law and the Constitution. That's when the head did not allow debate in the committee and failed to keep a neutral position as the committee's presiding official. The committee head also chose lawmaker Min Young-bae to be part of the Agenda Control Committee. Ahead of the passing of the bill, Min, previously a DP member, left the party and became a non-partisan representative. His vote allowed the bill to pass with majority vote in the Control Committee. The court, however, dismissed the dispute brought up against the Speaker of the Parliament for promulgating the passage of the bill. It also did not nullify the promulgation of the passage. The legislative process involved the revision of 2 acts in April and May of 2022, just before President Yoon Suk-yeol took office also later in May. The acts are the Prosecutor's Office Act, which lays out the scope of duties of the prosecution, and the Criminal Procedure Act. The revisions reduce the types of crimes the prosecution can directly investigate from the previous 6 to just 2, corruption and financial crimes. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
South Korea is notorious for its spending on private education, and such spending hit an all-time high last year, with parents feeling edgy about their kids being left behind during the pandemic. Our Choi Soo-hyung tells us more about this vicious cycle.
Data released by South Korea's Ministry of Education on March 7th show that spending on private education for elementary, middle and high school students in 2022 recorded an all-time high of over $20 billion. Among them, spending for private elementary education rose the most. The COVID-19 pandemic restrictions forced public schools to close their after-school care for working parents. These left parents with no choice but to leave their children at private daycare centers teaching taekwondo, music and arts, pushing up the spending on private elementary school-age education. The Education Ministry said parents are relieved that public school after-school care has restarted, but say it still isn't enough to meet parents' demands.
96.1% of parents answered positively and showed high satisfaction. It helped for children's mental health and encouraged their parents' careers. Most of them have a will to continue in the future.
Many parents also wanted to fill the education gap caused by the COVID-19 period by obsessing with private education. According to data, the average age that children in Korea start attending private academies is getting younger and younger, especially for English and math. There are worries that all this private education pushes children into a harsh competition with each other at an early age. Some people are rebelling against this long-standing problem and want to free children from spending their youth in private education.
Private academies advertise and sell advanced learning as if children need it to compete with their peers, but in fact, it gives a message to the parents that they need more and more education.
They say that the younger children start, the more parents think it is needed as their children get older. And that public education needs to step up to break this vicious cycle.
Parents, in fact, want to educate their children in public after-school programs that ensure safety and quality, but the reality is that supply doesn't meet demand.
The Education Ministry said it is preparing high-quality after-school care with digital and AI cutting-edge education to match the level of private education and not just be a care service. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
The 13th annual Medical Korea event is back in Seoul after a 3-year-long pause due to the pandemic. Under the theme of Journey for a Better Daily Life and Future, our Kim Jung-sil tells us more.
Ministers and ambassadors from around the world were in Seoul to celebrate the complete in-person return of the Medical Korea. K-pop idol Super Junior's Ryuk was appointed as an honorary ambassador for the event. Medical Korea focuses on offering a venue for global networks by inviting healthcare and medical tourism officials and experts from around the world. Here at the event, the experts are sharing state-of-the-art healthcare technology as well as discussing common values as a global citizen. This year's theme, Journey for a Better Daily Life and Future. The event also focuses on creating business opportunities for companies both in South Korea and overseas. Event organizer Korea Health Industry Development Institute said being healthy is a global common goal and that they hope people abroad can also benefit from advanced medical technology here in South Korea.
I think Medical Korea 2023 is a venue to think about how to benefit global citizens with the knowledge and strength that we have.
Keynote speaker and futurist for technology and healthcare Jamie Mitchell said South Korea could take a leading role in the healthcare industry.
Korea has a state-of-the-art healthcare system, and so I think Korea has a real opportunity, not just for people in other places to come to Korea for great care, and it's not just great care in terms of healthcare, it's great care in terms of personal care.
Visitors can also take a look at some of the state-of-the-art healthcare and medical products made by more than 800 companies. Each company promotes its take on new and exciting technology in biotech, health, rehabilitation, and even beauty. Those that wish to check them out can visit COEX until this weekend. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
For a look at the news from around the world, we now turn to our Matthew Ashley joining us here in the studio. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Dami.
Let's start in the U.S., where the CEO of TikTok testified in front of Congress over multiple concerns surrounding the app.
Well, that's right. In a 5-hour-long session, the head of the short-form video sharing platform, Shou Chu, was grilled by U.S. lawmakers. Now, they had questions about the TikTok CEO's relationship to the Chinese Communist Party and the safety of the app for young users. Now, the testimony comes amid a bipartisan push for the app to be banned in the U.S. over national security concerns. This is because of allegations that TikTok collects users' private data for use by the Chinese government, and that young people using the app are exposed to content that could be harmful. But Chu repeatedly distanced himself from the Chinese government, saying that it had no control over the app. He also defended the app, saying that TikTok has done its best to remove harmful content. Chu noted that content regulation is a common issue in the social media industry. Meanwhile, the World Athletics Council on Thursday voted to lift its 8-year doping ban on Russian athletes. But despite the decision, Russian and Belarusian athletes are still not allowed to compete at international competitions because of a separate ban over the invasion of Ukraine. During the 3-day meeting in Monaco, the council also voted to ban transgender athletes from competing at women's track and field events, effective March 31st. Now, the rule applies to athletes that have gone through male puberty, although the council said it would continue to consider the issue of transgender inclusion. World Athletics also tightened regulations for athletes with differences of sexual development, or DSD, a group of rare conditions that affect genes, hormones, and reproductive organs. Turning to Florida now, where an almost fully 3D printed rocket blasted off from Cape Canaveral on Wednesday evening, local time. Built by startup Relativity Space and called Terran 1, the rocket was made from 85% 3D printed parts and was launched on a mission nicknamed Good Luck, Have Fun. But despite a successful launch, the 34-meter tall rocket failed to reach orbit and eventually fell back to Earth after its second stage engine failed to start. Still, the launch marked the first time that a rocket of this kind reached and survived Max Q, the point where a rocket experiences the most dynamic pressure. Looking ahead, Relativity Space aims to eventually have its rockets consist of 95% 3D printed parts. And finally, we may know more about what caused the death of iconic composer Ludwig van Beethoven. According to a research paper published on Wednesday, analysis of DNA obtained from hair of the German composer and pianist pointed to a genetic risk for liver disease. There was also evidence that he was infected with hepatitis B, which can cause liver tissue to become scarred. Beethoven was also known to drink heavily, and it's believed that these factors led to his death at the age of 56. Known for classical music pieces such as Für Elise, the composer had a number of health issues, including chronic stomach pain and progressive hearing loss, that made him deaf in his late 40s. But his DNA has not yet provided clues into these conditions.
Good morning. It's another dusty start to the day with a dust advisory still in place in most western parts of the country, with air quality reaching hazardous level. We will have to wait until tomorrow afternoon to have some breathable air clearing from the central regions. Morning temperatures are kicking off 8 degrees lower than the same time yesterday, and highs will also be lower, topping out at 18 degrees in Seoul, which is not too bad at all. A dry weather advisory has been reissued in some central regions. Southern provinces are covered with lots of clouds today. Meanwhile, Jeju Island is forecast to see rain into tomorrow morning with 5 to 10 millimeters in the forecast. Coastlines along Jeollanam-do province will be quite windy. Morning temperatures start 2 to 7 degrees lower than Thursday. The daily highs will also be a few notches lower this afternoon. Daegu, Gwangju, Busan topping out at 16 degrees Celsius. Now temperature swings this weekend. Check the dust levels before heading out, and if it's too bad, refrain from going outside. That's Korea for you. Here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next week for a Monday's edition at the same time. Happy Friday!